My name is Janez, and I'm slasher Sam on Drupal.org and all other sites you can imagine. I'm a developer from Slovenia, and today's session is about caching in Drupal 7. It's basically a wrap-up of our experiences building a relatively large media site. It's one of the largest media sites in our country. I can show it later. First, some basics about cache. What is cache? You probably all here know what is cache, right? If you calculate something, the idea is that you store the result and reuse it the next time. Use cases in web development are many. You can cache things that you have to calculate a lot. You can cache things that you need a lot of I/O to get them. You can cache things that you fetch from other services to prevent failures if network falls down, something like that, and many, many more. One cache which is also used almost every time is PHP opcode cache, known as APC. And do you all use it in production? So it's also a cache, but it's not in the level of Drupal, but in the level of PHP. General idea which you follow when you build a large site with a lot of traffic like we did is that disk is slow and RAM is fast, and you want to put as much data as you can into RAM because you will get it faster. The structure of cache in Drupal 7 is really powerful, and it's divided in 3 parts. You are probably all familiar with these tables in a Drupal's database. These are known as cache bins. But let's start with a cache item. Cache item is a single piece of data which you want to store in the cache, and you give it a unique name, and you use this name to get that data from cache over and over again. You can decide for every cache item you have in which cache bin you want to store it. As I have shown before, these tables in Drupal's database are cache bins that are there by default. Your module or any other module can define its own bins, like Views does, and then you can store things to your bin or to some default bin which is provided by core. The third level of cache in Drupal is a backend. Backend is the technology where you store your data. By default, Drupal uses database, but as we will see, you can use a lot more things which have different options and different pros and cons, things like that. The thing is that every cache bin that exists in your Drupal installation can be in a different backend. So you can decide, I will put this bin in database and the other bin in some place else. That gives you a lot of flexibility because you don't have the same requirements for every piece of data you use on your site. If you want to use Drupal's cache in your code, it looks basically like this. You get data from cache with this function, cache get. The first argument, it's a unique name of your cache item, and the second argument, it's a bin from which you want to fetch data. Cache is default bin, so you can omit it, and it will always fetch from this bin. If you want to use some other bin, you have to specify it there. If there is no cache item with this unique name in that bin, the result will be empty, So you go into the else statement where you calculate or fetch from database or fetch from somewhere else. And at the end, when you have your data prepared for usage, you first set it into cache, and the next time when you come into this piece of code, you will get it from cache, and you saved all the time you spent building or calculating it. It's relatively simple, and it's just this, nothing else. We've come to backends. I did a bit of research which backends can be used in Drupal for storing cache. As I already explained, you can decide for every single bin in which backend you will store it. This framework in Drupal is totally pluggable. So if you find some technology which you want to use to store things in, you can write a plugin and use it on your Drupal site. As I already mentioned, the default infrastructure, default backend which is used for caching in Drupal is database. These are those tables which I displayed before. It's easy, it's there by default. You don't have any work with it. You don't have to install anything else on the server. It's just there for free. The problem is that it can be slow because it uses MySQL and it uses disk. If you have a high traffic site, the database is usually already under pressure, and you're putting even more pressure on it because you're using cache. You're using database for cache. The next option which can be used is APC. As we already said, APC can be used to like an opcode cache, to cache the compiled versions of your PHP scripts, but it can also be used like a user cache. So you can use it to store your own data in it. It's easy to configure. You basically don't have to do anything if you already have it there. There is a module which provides plugin and integration. You just install that module, open README, and configure it. It uses RAM because that's how APC works. The problem is that if you have a high availability stack, every server will have its own instance of APC, and the cache will be built on every server separately. So this can be a problem if you want to synchronize cache, and it's also a problem because you have to build cache 2 times, 3 times. It depends how many servers you have. And one thing which is also interesting, you cannot clear it from Drush because APC is owned to every PHP process, and Drush is running in command line, and Apache is running with mod PHP or something else, and it's different process. So if you run it with Drush, it will clear Drush's APC, which is probably empty. So, but it's really, really fast. And the reason why it's so fast is it is the closest of all cache backends to the PHP itself. APC is basically the memory of PHP, and it's immediately accessible. Next option, which is commonly used, it's Memcache. Memcache also uses RAM, but its own server. So you have Memcache, it's a separate process, which is then accessed by PHP over the network. This adds you some more time to fetch data because you have to ask for data over the network and get it back, things like that. It's still really, really fast. You can have one Memcache instance for all of your servers, so you don't have synchronization problems. The only problem, which is also with APC, is that it's non-permanent. When you shut it down, all your data that is there is gone. Memcache can be also used for sessions, for example, and in this case, if you have sessions in Memcache, when you shut it down, all users will be logged out because you lost all your session data. Redis, it's a key value store. It's fairly similar to Memcache, except that it knows how to write data to disk if you need your data permanently. It is, you can configure it, you can tell Redis, okay, write data to disk if there were 10 changes, 100 changes, so you have control how often the Redis writes to disk. When you store something in it, it will go into RAM, and depending on your configuration, after some time, Redis will write this down to disk, and when it's written down, the data will stay there. It's also really fast, depending how you configure it. It has all advantages as Memcache. One thing which I forgot to mention at Memcache is if you want to use it with PHP, you have to build your own extension in PHP. And if you're not able to do it on your server for any reason, you have a problem. With Redis, you can either use an extension which you compile, or you can use a PHP library, so you don't have problem here. It is probably in practice a bit slower than Memcache, because sooner or later it has to write things down to the disk. Another storage mechanism you can use for cache is Mongo. Mongo is a document database. It can be used with Drupal. Some Drupal sites use it. It is fast, but it stores everything on a disk. It doesn't use RAM. The reason why it's fast with writing is that it saves one big piece of hard drive and just write in a synchronous order. It's not writing all around the disk, but in one piece, and that's the reason why it performs better. Another advantage with Mongo is that it can be used like storage for entities in Drupal, but like all the other services which I mentioned, adds another level of complexity in your server stack, which you have to administrate, and it's probably the most complex to administrate. You also need a PHP extension for Mongo. How do you configure this? It's done in settings.php. Every backend plugin comes with a class which implements all the things that you need to use it. You tell Drupal which backends you use. If you add file name path to a file which implements a plugin into a cache backends array, this is a normal configuration variable in Drupal. Some backends have their own configuration, some don't. For example, APC is really simple. It doesn't need any configuration. Redis module needs to know which type of Redis implementation in PHP do you use. Either do you use extension or do you use library. You can enable as many backends as you want. And then here you decide which backend will be used by default. So all cache beans will live there. In the current configuration, Memcache is the default backend, and all cache beans will go there. And then you can override for a single bean and put it somewhere else. Like here, a cache form table which stores form hashes goes to Redis, and for example, cache menu goes to Mongo. It depends on your installation, what do you need. The point is that you can do anything you want. Any questions here? Okay. I've done a bit of performance overview. Um, uh, it was a simple benchmark, so we could discuss if I could done it better, but for the general impression, it's okay. I saved 100,000 items. I fetched 100,000 items, and I deleted 100,000 items. As you can see, the MySQL, which was the database, is pretty slow, especially when it comes to setting and deleting items from there. The fastest was APC, for the reason I mentioned before. Redis and Memcache are somewhere on the same level. The point with Redis was that it was configured that it was using mostly RAM. It was not writing a lot to the disk. So if I would do this and I would do it on a live site where you already have things going on, the result would probably be different. And as you can see, Mongo is really, really fast with writing because it writes everything in one piece. And because the data is spread in this one piece, it gets a bit more time to get it. So, of course, if the cache would only be accessible to developers, this would limit its usability. Everybody probably know the page cache and block cache in Drupal. What this basically does, it uses this framework which I described to save output of blocks or output of entire page. Especially page cache can save you a lot of time. And I think that both of these caches have their own bins, so you can move them around. For example, you enable page cache and you put it into memcache, and you have output of your site available immediately from RAM for anonymous users. Another thing that is even more powerful and is built around this framework is views and panels cache. How many of you have used the views cache? That's great. All the others, you should do it also because it's a really great feature. Up there you see the image. It's in advanced tab. When you open the advanced tab, you have a caching setting. And what it does, it basically saves the query result and the HTML output. And you can set a time for how long that data will be valid. And if you have valid cache data in your stored into your system, the view will not execute at all. You save a lot of time. The similar thing is implemented in panels. You can cache every single content pane in panels. You also can set for how much time, and even you can set granulation level. So if you have context in panels, you can say, okay, cache this content pane for every context. So you will just get one item for every context there exists, or cache another panel based on context, and you will get a different cached version of your pane depending on the context. This is really handy if you, for example, use panels to display nodes. If you have some common blocks in a sidebar, for example, latest content, things like this, you can cache it globally, and things that are related to a node, for example, body, will be cached on context granulation, and that's how you optimize it. Are any questions? I have a use case. I will tell you how did we do it on our site, but before we finish with these things, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I was calling Drupal function. Uh, I didn't. And I think also I did it on my PC, which was not under pressure at that time. And if I would do it on a live site where you already have things going on, the result would probably be different. So that's the main reason why I didn't do it. But it would be interesting, yeah. I presented this session at our national meetup, and the most of discussion was around this, how we would improve benchmarks. So, how did we optimize our page? I can show it to you. It's a media page. It's built in Drupal 7. It was released in December. In April, we had 13 million hits in 1 month. That's pretty much for Slovenia, but Slovenia is a small country. So, few days after the launch of this site, there were elections in Parliament, and this is a really heavy stress for media websites, and it was working pretty well. The whole editorial team was working during the evening, saving content all the time. A lot of users visiting it, and everything worked. So, how did we do it? First, enable query log. Even if you cache output of your views or queries or whatever, sooner or later that content will expire. And some user will come there, and it will have to wait for as much time as that operation needs to end. And if you have a devel module, you can enable query log in its settings, and on every request below the site you will get the list of all queries performed during the request, and you can sort it by the time that it took to execute. And if you get something like this, for example, queries taking second or more, that's not good. Yeah? So what to do? Optimize your queries. If you're using views, you can optimize views. It's a lot of people were saying to me that on a large sites you shouldn't use views because it's not really performant. But the views are generally just a mask for a query. And if you know what is happening below views, what is views building, what kind of query are you running on your database, you can always optimize it. Also in views, when you build queries, you have performance statistics down there, and you can see what's going on when you build your site. The only thing that we forgot while we were building this, if you have a development site with 100 nodes in it, it will act totally different than a production site which has 50,000 nodes in it. So if you have to test it, generate 50,000 nodes and try how it works with this amount of content. Another thing you can do, enable profiler. How many of you have, do you know what is XHprof? Yes. It's a great tool. It's profiler. It's basically what it does. It measures every function, how long does it run, and you will get a total report of every request. And that's how you can identify which functions are slow, and you can either cache output of these functions, or you can check if there is some stupid things going on, and you can optimize your code. And then when you have done this, when you have done all the best you can with queries and your code, you start to cache. If you're not using panel reviews, just enable block cache and page cache. If you're using panels as we did, you can do a hell lot of more. For example, on our side, on front page, you can see that there are a lot of blocks, and this is one panel, and we have configured the cache settings for each of these parts of page separately. Here we have some ads, and ads doesn't change a lot, so you can cache it for, I don't know, a day or a week or something like this. Then you have the main block, which changes a lot. During the day when the editorial team is working, it changes almost every minute. And so we decided to cache it for 3 minutes. It was also a discussion which was done with our editorial team. We asked them, how often do you want this piece of content to be updated? And they told us. Of course, they said that everything must be updated the second we change it. And then we said, okay, but you want from us to give you some performance. And then we explained to them that they have to think about this. And then we come up with the solution. For example, the small block here is cached for 1 hour, which is not changed a lot. These blocks are also cached for 5 minutes, something like this. And the same thing was done on an article page, which is also a panel. And this was really important because we have quite a lot of logged in users. And anonymous traffic can be cached with page cache or even varnish in our case. But when user logs in, page cache or varnish will not work for him anymore. And if you manage to cache all your parts of a site which are basically the same still, you can save a lot of time. So yeah, that's it. We are running well, and traffic has risen for about 50% or 60% in the last 4 months, and the servers are still under pretty much the same load as before. So, yeah, that's it. So, if you have any questions, yeah, please. Yeah, yeah. I think we have set it for 3 minutes, I think. No, the thing with Varnish is that just the fact that it caches images and JavaScript and CSS, which doesn't change at all, will save you a lot of Apache load. So we have in Drupal you have this setting here, minimum cache lifetime and expiration of cache pages. This is the information which is passed from Drupal to Varnish to tell him how long the page should be cached. And I think this one is set to 3 minutes. But I believe that in Varnish configuration we also have overridden this for images and set it for even a longer time. I was not configuring it, so I don't know the exact number, but because the sysadmin is playing with it all the time, yeah, but basically that's it. Yeah. We mostly use panels cache. We cache entire content panes. The problem was, for example, jCarousel, which is integrated with views and everything. It configures JavaScript in theme functions. So if we'd cache this block, this jCarousel block with panels, the theme function will never be called. So it would work for the first request, and for the second request, the content would be here, but carousel would not initialize. And that's why we then didn't cache this one on a panels level. We cached it on a views level because it was the easiest one. we could override team function and all things like this, but we tried with this solution and it works, so yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. Yeah, we basically implemented something that does this by ourselves because there was like negotiations. Yeah, well, we don't want to cache this, blah, blah, blah. And then we said, okay, we will cache it for a longer amount of time that you want, but you will have a possibility to delete it. Yeah? And then we implemented some logic behind the scenes which checks what is going on the side, and if a node type is saved, then a node type is a node type that is really important to them, then we, for example, clear this block and clear varnish if they want it. So, but we were trying to force them to be as much conservative as possible. But and they're happy now, so it works. I think the nodes are not even are just cached on a time level basis. They were really there were a lot of negotiation going around with front page because it's the entry page for the site. But yeah, and they're happy, and we have enough performance to do the job. So. Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't test it. Yeah, and I also experienced this problem, but we managed to optimize this if we reordered views a bit and we have set some indexes or some tables and we achieved the response time that was okay to us. So, but I will check it. I heard once of it and I forgot about it, so I will check it. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And then you have revision tables and all that stuff. Um, I will check it. Thank you. Any other question? Yeah. We have two servers, two dedicated servers, and basically we have everything on these two servers. We have Varnish, and we have patches, and we have MySQL, and master-slave replication. It's the fact that our company, our employer, bought really powerful physical servers, and I would prefer to have it in virtual machines or something, but it's not a long time when we got dedicated sysadmin and things like that, so we had to build our stack on these things. And it works, and it's kind of HA, and yeah, but are pretty powerful servers. It's, I don't know, it's 40 gigs of RAM every server and 24 cores or something like this. And it basically uses 3 or 4 cores all the time. I mean, I can also show you the graphs of Munin if you want, if you're interested. Yeah, half of one. Yeah, yeah. Um, if you're interested, you can come here and I can show you graphs, what's going on in the servers if you want. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, then that's it for now. And thank you for your attention.